اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله يا إمام الرحمة يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله اشفعي لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله، يا جعفر بن محمد، يا أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن، يا موسى بن جعفر، أيها الكاظم يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن، يا علي بن موسى، أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع. يا أبا جعفر، يا محمد بن علي، أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن، يا علي بن محمد، أيها الهادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا محمد، يا حسن بن علي، أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا وسي الحسن والخلف الهجة، أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا سادتي وموالي، إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وأدتي ليوم فقري وحاجتي إلى الله، وتوسلت بكم إلى الله، واستشفعت بكم إلى الله، فاشفعوا لي عند الله، واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله، فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله، وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله، فكونوا عند الله رجائي. يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين، ولعن الله أعداء الله ظالمهم من الأولين والآخرين. آمين يا رب العالمين. الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Tuesday night program, Dua Tawassul. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your hajat with the wasila of the Aimma Athar for whom we recited and the dua that we recited. Usually we do tafsir on Tuesday nights, this being the Shab of the 1st of Shaban. Tomorrow, Wednesday, being the 1st of Shaban. Even if the moon seems a little bit bigger, still there were no sightings yesterday, and therefore it was always going to be a bigger moon, which of course is irrelevant because the sighting is the criteria. And as far as the sighting was concerned, it was only seen in the West Coast, which is in San Diego area, and West will not be applicable to those living East, as far as East as you and I are. And therefore, according to Atlas Sistani's fatwa, today is the last day of Rajab, and tomorrow, of course, is the first day of Shaban. With that munasabat, I thought instead of doing the regular tafsir in 10-15 minutes that I have in my possession, one of the dates of the Wiladat of Bibi Zainab bint Ali salamullahi alayha is mentioned to be the first day of Shaban. Also in the month of Jamadil Ula, the 5th of Jamadil Ula is when we celebrated her birth this year. But 1st of Shaban is also mentioned in some of the books of Rawayat and Ahadith and history to be the first or to be the Wiladat of this great lady. And so for that reference, I thought I'll share a few words regarding this great individual. She was born in the city of Madinatul Munawwara to the house of Amirul Mu'mineen and Janab Sayyida, the first daughter in their house after the two sons in the form of Hasanain alayhim wassalatu wassalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And in that regards, I recited this ayat from Surah Yusuf, ayat number 108, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ هَذِهِ سَبِيلِي أَدْعُو إِلَى اللَّهِ. Say this is my way I summon to Allah with insight. Ala basiratin, ana wa man ittaba'ani. To myself and he who follows me. Immaculate is Allah, and I'm not one of the polytheists. The reason I recited this ayah is I wanted to focus. There are many aspects and dimensions of the life of Janab Zainab. But one aspect of the life of Janab Zainab, as there have been many books that have been written regarding her seerah, one of the aspects of Janab Zainab is her basirat, her insight. You know, every individual has insight to different extent, lower or high. I guess the higher your IQ, the higher the insight, where we see that in different occasions, on different occasions, how you react to certain things and how you plan for certain things. That reflects on your insight. So, you know, if you see as people grow older, they have seen the world, they have seen many things. Now, with this tajrubah and this experience of theirs, they will be subtle in making some of the decisions. And therefore, they are able to provide this insight to the younger ones, their children for that matter, because the kids have not gone through that stuff. For example, helping them through making some of the life decisions, the parents would serve as a guide because they have the insight the child is lacking at the moment. Because child, however old they get, they're seeing, you know, from their perspective. And they haven't really seen it from the perspective of others, those who have a greater experience than themselves. So from that aspect, you know, if you have a child who's 10-year-old, his focus would be only to an extent. This is where your parenthood comes in and you go ahead and guide them. Child is 15 years old. Of course, they have grown a little bit smarter, but still, as they're growing smarter, your experience is also increasing. You will guide them. When it comes to making decisions for them, for college, for what should they study, and, you know, career-wise, all of these. And then when they get married, you provide your insight, right? This is what's called basirat. And it is important that everyone should possess this basirat. We see that Quran talks about basirat on numerous occasions. Of course, the root word comes from the same basara, which means to see. And that's why it's called the insight. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, Ali ibn Abi Talib ﷺ said, if a person is blind, فَقْدُ الْبَصْرِ أَهْوَنُ مِنْ فُقْدَانِ الْبَصِيرَةِ. He said, if a person is blind, it's easier for him than a person who lacks insight. I'd rather have a person who's blind than a person who is lacking any insight. A blind person would have more insight than sometimes those who are, you know, have perfect vision, for example. And so therefore the story of our fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam, that he entered Masjid-e-Nabawi, and one of his companions asked one of the companions to find out if anyone noticed the son of Rasulullah, meaning Imam Baqir, in the masjid. So imagine, I'm sure all of you have gone to Masjid-e-Nabawi. It's packed, it's crowded. You know, there are a lot of people, even then and now. And so the place was packed. A lot of people were there. And so this companion of Imam goes up to different individuals. He said, have you seen Imam? Have you seen the son of Rasulullah? They used to call him Yabna Rasulullah, right? So they said, did you see our fifth Imam? Have you seen him? And everyone he asked, everyone who was busy doing their work, you know, praying or reading Quran or anything else that they're doing in masjid. Back in the day, you could do multiple things in masjid, but nowadays, due to the Wahhabi occupation, if you do anything else aside from Quran or Salat, they'll come and they'll say, what are you doing? So if you're reciting dua, they're like, don't read this. You can only read Quran. If you're telling people the historic background of the masjid, they say, don't talk about that. Only maw'idah over here, only muhadara, and you can't give lectures. So people were busy. Imam then told him to ask a person who was blind and sitting far away, because masjid is pretty big, if he had noticed Imam's presence in the gathering. The companion said to himself, I asked those who had eyes. They didn't notice Imam. Why is it that Imam is telling me to go ahead and ask this blind man, had he noticed Imam's presence in him? But he was commanded by Imam, so he went ahead and asked this blind man. The blind man responded, yes, I noticed he entered from so-and-so door. Man was perplexed, asked, how did he know? He said, how can I not? When the walls and the alleys and the floors are all welcoming the Imam. It's not the humans who lacked the insight. The walls, the carpet, the windows, everything that is inside this masjid, they were illuminated by the presence of this Imam and the ambience of this Imam. They all welcomed him. Well, how can I not notice the wujud of such an individual in this masjid? Sometimes it takes, even a blind person would have a more basirat than those who possess the eyes. So this is what basirat is. So I wanted to mention some of the examples of the basirat of Bibi Zainab, salamullah alayha, as to how she displayed it, of course, throughout her life and in the later part of her life. Night of Ashura, they want to give a letter of immunity to Hazrat Abbas because of his relationship through his mother and how it reaches. And they came, and Shimr comes up and he says to Hazrat Abul Fadl Abbas that because you belong to our family, this is an aman nama for you, this is security that you will be safeguarded. You just come to us. We will not harm you because you're family. Families are given immunity over here. Hazrat Abbas responded, La'anat upon your aman nama. There's no immunity without Hussein. What am I going to do if I come with you and leave Hussein ibn Ali, the hujjat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to go ahead and find aman and security and immunity in you? Baneen was told that all your children died in Karbala. She said what? Kulluhum wa man tahta al-khadra fida al-Hussein. All of my children and everything that is under this world or the skies, or everything that is on top of this earth, everything to be fida and ransom for Hussein ibn Ali. This is the basirat that a mother possesses. Sixth Imam left his wasiyat. So these are some of the mawarid of basirat from different individuals of Ahlul Bayt. Sixth Imam left his wasiyat nama. Every Imam leaves wasiyat. Wasiyat is highly recommended, and in some places it is actually wajib. It's recommended to go ahead and have your wasiyat ready. In his wasiyat nama, Imam named Mansur Dawaniqi, the Hakim of Medina, Abdullah Afta, Imam's own wife, and Musa ibn Ja'far, his son, to be what? To be his heirs after Imam leaves. Why? Mansur Dawaniqi had told the Wali of Medina, as soon as Imam was sick, that he is about to die, he said, go ahead and kill or arrest whoever he appoints as his successor, whoever he mentions in his wasiyat nama. Wali of Medina returned back, said, if that was the case, we will have to arrest myself, I'll have to arrest you, I'll have to arrest his wife, I'll have to arrest 2 of his sons. These are the 5 people that are mentioned in the wasiyat nama of 6th Imam. So here we understand that how Imam ﷺ made sure that his son, Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, will not be harmed after him. There are 3 types of basirat. I'm going through this quickly. Number 1 is basirat-e akhlaqi, meaning your moral, ethical basirat. Basirat-e akhlaqi, Amirul Mu'mineen said, Absarun nas man absara uyubahu wa aqla'a an dunubihi. The more insightful of mankind is the one who is able to recognize, diagnose his own defects, and no one is able to, his own defects, and one who is able to remove his sins. Meaning what? We're so quick to point out the defects in others. It's so easy to meet someone, speak to someone for an hour, and then point out this person has this problem, this person has this problem, this person has that problem. And in fact, in an hour-long meeting with someone, you can go ahead and list all the things that you found. I said, if you spend half hour, an hour with another individual, you were able to find all the defects. You spend your entire life with yourself, with your own soul. You study your own soul. How come you're unable to point out all of the same defects in you? The moment you're able to recognize your own defects, the moment you will be able to remove with this basirat all the sins that you have upon you. So physical illness can be assessed by a physician and removed by a medicine. A spiritual illness, however, is difficult to diagnose and then to cure. Because if you don't know, if you don't diagnose it, how are you going to go about curing it? Just like cancer. If it's not diagnosed, it continues to build. And when you find out, sometimes it's too late. So, Ayatollah Falsafi said there are 3 types of people who can help. 1, yourself. 2nd, your friend. And 3rd, your enemy. All these can diagnose your illness. But why would you want to leave it to your friend or your enemy to go ahead and diagnose this illness when you can diagnose it yourself? So that's basirat-e akhlaqi. We need to have this basirat-e akhlaqi to be able to look at our defects. 2nd is basirat-e dini. You need to have insight as far as your religion is concerned. What is the basirat-e dini? Prophet said, if a person has 3 things, then his aql is complete. Meaning, as far as the basirat and the insight regarding his religion. ثلاثة أجزاء فمن كن فيه كمل عقله ومن لم تكن فيه فلا عقل له. Number 1, حسن المعرفة لله, حسن الطاعة لله, وحسن الصبر على أمر الله. What are the 3 things? If you have them, then you have basirat-e-dini, religious insight, having good ma'rifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having good husnul ta'a, and husnul sabr ala amrillah, having good patience in front of the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have these 3 things, you possess what is called, my brothers, basirat-e-dini. Last, basirat-e-siyasi. We also need to have political insight. A lot of times things are happening around us. We are so quick to take sides. Republicans, Democrats, this and that. Or, independent. Or where we come from, there are a lot of parties over there as well. We associate ourselves to this party or that party. Or you need to have basirat-e-siyasi, political insight as well. Not be biased and prejudiced because you subscribe to someone, you're going to overlook their defects. That's where the problem arises. Blind following. It says, وَهُمْ سَأْسَةُ الْإِبَادِ in Ziyarat Jami Kabira, taught to us by Imam Ali Naqi alayhi salatu wasalam. I tell you, when we recite these ziyarat, we sometimes don't do justice because we're just in a rush to recite the ziyarat and be done with it. Study the ziyarah. This ziyarah, which is associated with 10th Imam, has nukat about the fadail and the masaib as well as the basirat of Imam regarding the ahwal and the tariq and the history in this ziyarat. It's one of the lengthy ziyarat, of course, and it's one of the more authentic ziyarat. Not that other ziyarat are not authentic, but this is one of the most authentic of the ziyarat. In this ziyarah, Imam says, وَهُمْ سَأْسَةُ الْإِبَادِ regarding the Ahlul Bayt. Imam Khomeini said, whoever thinks siyasat is separate from deen hasn't understood any one of them. Hasn't understood deen, has not understood siyasat. Bibi Zainab also possessed the highest level of basirat in deen, in akhlaq, as well as in siyasat. And we find all 3 of these in her, the brief time that we have the study of her life, especially during the last 2 years of her life. Basically, primarily from 60th year after Hijrah to 61st and 62nd until her Shahadat. These 2-3 years, we find the life is filled with basirat-e-dini, akhlaqi and siyasi. Hazrat Abdullah, husband of Bibi Zainab, went and got Aman Nama for Imam Hussain. And she was awarded these titles by Masumin. So when she got the Aman Nama for Imam Hussain, she said, what are we going to do with this Aman Nama? I'll go with Imam Hussain. So there was already an insight when the time that she got married to Hazrat Abdullah, knowing that there would be a need So this was already written in her nikah, for example. And therefore, Ma'asumeen are giving her this title, Alimatu Ghayri Mu'allima. She is knowledgeable, possessor of ilm, without having studied anyone through anyone. Iffat, as far as her modesty is concerned, haya, jihad, sabr, shaja'at, and ithar. Altruism, as far as the altruism of Bibi Zainab is concerned, how she does not blink once when it comes to giving the sacrifice of her own sons in the Battle of Karbala. Peak of altruism is that once you give your children for the shahadat. Second is when their dead bodies come, what do you say? Allahumma taqabbal minna hadal qaleel. Oh Allah, accept from us this small, contribution. Sometimes we give $1 and we say, oh, we want to be recognized, right? Sometimes you see someone gave $1 million, they're silent. They don't want to be recognized. Here, there were many people who were speaking, giving Imam, a lot of advices. Oh, Imam, do this. Oh, Imam, do this. Oh, Imam, do that. But those who gave life, what are they doing? They're saying, this is nothing. Hada qaleel. This is small. This is nothing in comparison to what is expected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As far as her jihad and struggle is concerned, you've heard this sentence 100 times, maybe 1,000 times, that Bibi Zainab, when she stands in front of Ibn Ziyad, فَقَالَ Ibn Ziyad, فَقَالَ Ibn Ziyad, كَيْفَ رَأَيْتِ صُنَعَ اللَّهِ بِأَخِيكَ وَأَهْلِ بَيْتِكَ. How did you see what Allah did to your brother and to your family? What was the response? فَقَالَتْ مَا رَأَيْتُ إِلَّا جَمِيلًا. I see nothing except beauty. This is basirat. And even Ibn Ziyad, lowly people like Ibn Ziyad and those in the court of Ibn Ziyad, I was like, what kind of response is this? It was above their pay grade. They couldn't understand what she was trying to say. He said, مَا رَأَيْتُ إِلَّا جَمِيلًا. I see nothing except beauty. Well, you just had your family killed in Karbala, your brother killed, you're made captives, and you're standing in front of us as captives, chained and whatnot. She said, مَا رَأَيْتُ إِلَّا جَمِيلًا. I see nothing except beauty in it. How do you look at this to be beauty? Because this is in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah is aware of what is happening to us, and this is what He has demanded from us. So when He has demanded this from us, there's nothing except beauty in the ita'at and the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And inshallah, towards the end, I had a lot of other points regarding Janab Zainab's basirat, but of course we'll run out of time. Her exalted position is such that when Imam Hussein would be reciting Quran and Zainab walked in, Imam Hussein would stand up and put the Quran away. Just like how Janab Sayyida would walk in, Rasulullah would stand up and make her sit in his place. When Imam Hussein would be reciting Quran, Zainab walked in, he would put the Quran away because he wants to go ahead and welcome Janab Zainab salamullahi alaiha. People blame that Islam degrades women, but we find on the contrary, the presence of such women elevated the rank of womanhood in the entire, in the mankind basically, entire race of mankind. Wujud of people like Janab Zainab is something which elevated the status of women above all. And of course, there are other things, inshallah, I'll share it with you in the coming days. So we look at that how Janab Zainab salamullah alayha, and it's one of the dates of the Wiladat, which is the 1st of Shaban. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the basirat and the insight this great lady possessed. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are bestowed and we are the recipient of the shafa'at of Bibi Zainab salamullah alayha on the Day of Judgment. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the qualities that this great lady possessed, such as sacrifice, altruism, bravery, shaja'at, and sabr on top of all of that. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of our awaited Imam, make us amongst the helpers and soldiers of Imam. Akhiru da'wan, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum Rasulullah, Assalamu alaikum Nabi Allah, Assalamu alaikum Habibullah, Assalamu alaikum Khairatullah, Assalamu alaikum Rahmatullah wa barakatuh, Assalamu alaikum Abu Abdullah, Assalamu alaikum Ibn Rasulullah, Assalamu alaikum wa ala jaddika wa abik, wa ala ummika wa akhik wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, Assalamu alaikum Agri wal Ghuraba, Assalamu alaikum Mu'in al-Du'afa wal Fuqara, Assalamu alaikum Shams al-Shumus wa Anis al-Nufus, أيها المدفون بأرض توس علي ابن موسى رضا ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليكم صاحب العصر والزمان السلام عليكم إمام الإنس والجان السلام عليكم شريك القرآن أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك وأنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته.